Hi guys, welcome to OCD Real Talk. I'm really doing a tour over here of one-on-one bonding with different people. It's Sam's turn because we always have all these other random people. And so Sam, I think we need like a one-on-one conversation for sure. Um
Yes, do it. It feels
yeah,
like a job interview now. That's what I said to Mum, and it feels like a job interview. I'm a
yeah.
bit nervous.
So can you tell me about where do you see yourself in 5 years? Um So we were going to talk about good old guilt because it's one of the most common feelings that OCD sufferers go through. They want to avoid it at all costs. They think it's some kind of like big bad monstrous force in their life. And Sam and I both have had like experience with it very deeply. Um, if I really think about it, honestly, I've spent so many nights rolling around in bed just feeling like a shit person. Like
Yeah,
I've done that so much. But yeah, it's hard to think about it now.
I think the biggest thing for me with guilt was like even just seeing other people out in public. It was the constant in the background. If only they knew this, right? So just looking at someone else in the eye felt like I just felt like I just couldn't do that because that means they'll know this, or that means I'm lying to them, putting on an act, and it just felt so scary. Even just talking about it with friends, that maybe you were suffering with OCD or just anxiety, and it's all like it felt like I was a cop out because
Yeah.
of the taboo related themes such as POCD, harm OCD, incest OCD, hit and run. I could go on all night talking about all the different themes, but it felt like it was different to just anxiety
Yeah.
because it just felt so real. I mean, you hear me talk about in my videos a lot of how real that feels.
And
So even talk,
it also like whenever someone says something nice about you, it's like an instant rebuttal in your head. Yeah, but
yeah,
you don't know who I am. You don't know what
that,
I've done. You don't know what kind of person I am. And I felt like I think all those years I've even growing up as a kid, it wasn't even just like something that I was like experiencing as an adult. Even in my early teens, I remember experiencing this like someone saying something nice about me that, oh, Momin is such a well-behaved boy.
yeah,
Like immediately it would be like, yeah, but you don't know this like dark evil side about me. Like I'm a wretched person. And it felt like I had these two personalities, and like one was this like secret sinister kind of perverted kind of personality, and one that I was showing off to the world. And it was in my head, it felt like such like a dichotomy and this like inner like internal battle that I was having in terms of identity of like who am I actually.
yeah, and that's why I confessed a lot. That's why I vented a lot because it so often felt like I was hiding some god awful secret, like a terrible dark secret that if that was out in public, I'd never be let off the hook. I'd spend the
So
rest of my life in jail.
here's the
That's how.
interesting bit. I was opposite. I was mum about all of it. Like I would confess about. So my confessing happened with like other smaller things, but whatever it was like deep dark inside, I it was a tight lid on it. I did not discuss those things. And
Yeah,
that's what made me feel like even like a bigger fraud because I was like, yeah, I I come off as this like wearing his heart on his sleeve kind of guy, and I'm open about my thoughts and feelings, and I'm open about discussing things, but I'm not really telling people something that I've been keeping to myself for all these years kind of thing.
yeah. I think the reason I confessed was because of the temporary relief I would get. So I would just
Mm.
get loads of reassurance. So whoever I confessed to, my partner, my family, friends, I'll just get, no, you're not a bad person. You're the last person to ever do that. So that then gave me some sort of relief. But
Yep.
then I'd literally the next day an OCD would latch at something else and go, well, no, you didn't explain it properly. Or no, they didn't know about this, or they didn't understand that, and then that would just be so exhausting. And then I'd be calling up again. Yeah, I've got another confession for you. Or have you ever done this? Have you ever had this thought? And that was just
Yeah.
constant, constant.
Did you ever share with your friends about POCD?
Um, yes, and I remember the next day, the guilt was through the roof.
Oof.
Because I was saying about the sort of taboo related thoughts because I was saying I was struggling with OCD and I was trying to explain intrusive thoughts to someone.
Yeah.
Um, but the next day, bloody hell, like just ringing them, texting them, and if they didn't reply, if they read a text, if they left me on blank, bloody hell, the panic attack then was like, God, they're going to the police. Oh my
Yeah.
God, they're going to tell everyone about me. So that was tough, right? But yeah, I remember doing that a lot, and yeah, that was very
Oh
difficult
God.
times.
Yeah.
That was just for relief because the other thing I didn't know really what OCD was back then. It was just get the intrusive thoughts off your mind so people can give you that reassurance that you're not a
Yeah.
bad person.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I can relate to that in in other stuff because I had relationship OCD towards my friends, right? In my friendships, it came up like very badly, and a lot of my friends also don't know about this, but it was also um, like if someone did not, let's say there was a birthday party or something, right? Or I had a good hangout with someone, and then you go back home and there maybe you send them a message to like something about anything or whatever, and if they don't reply, immediately my thought would be, oh, they've had too much of me, and now they like want complete space, they don't like me right now if they're not
Yeah,
replying, that kind of thing. So immediate self-doubt, immediate self-deprecation, and like,
yeah,
you, I knew it, I'm too much.
yeah. And I had that a lot, not even just like the taboo related themes. I just had that, for example, in the office at work. I might have said a slightly offensive joke, or I might have been rude to someone.
Yeah.
I might have been quite abrupt or quite direct to someone. And then I'd be checking them, I'd be texting them or emailing them at work saying, "Are you okay?" Just over the top. And then we'd have a social and I'd be making sure they're okay, making sure they like me. That was so
Oh
tiring because
Lord. Yeah.
it was the smallest of thing, right? I wouldn't say, literally, I wouldn't say please. I wouldn't say thank you to them. Or, when you make a joke and you think, oh, that could be quite offensive. And then just because they didn't react in the way you want them to, you're making sure they approve of you, making sure they like you, making sure you're not going to get sacked.
Yeah.
And that was so tiring.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think another it was, I don't know. I mean, because we're constantly in our heads like attacking ourselves, right? For anything. And like I think and growing up, like late when I grew up and I became an adult, like there were so many things that I also like try to have a lot more compassion for myself as well, and just more of a human understanding of myself. So like as a 11, 12 year old kid who was like obviously growing up and having hormones and starting to think a little bit about like touch and romance or like attraction or sex or something like that, especially when you grow up in like a setup where like sex is like a very hush hush kind of topic, and obviously it's like new, especially for kids. Then as a kid, when you start having those thoughts, or you see like two people kissing in a movie or something like that, it's like, oh my god, I'm so perverted, why am I liking this? And that thing really stuck with me, I think, like easily from the age of 10 till I was probably 17, 18, something like that, easily, like for many years. It was just this thing of like, I'm so perverted, why am I so sex obsessed? And the more I didn't want to be in my head like sex obsessed, the more it felt like I was. And that's one of the things that really made me feel like this, like, I don't know, this sleazy person. And that's the last thing that I wanted to feel. So I mean, it wasn't, I've never had POCD, but like just in terms of like sexual thoughts, right? It's like something sex themed. That
Yeah.
was just, even like it was just like, nope, I don't want to associate with it. Even though there would be some, obviously there would be times I was like a kid going through adolescence and puberty and whatnot. Obviously, there were a lot of sexual moments that I did enjoy, but still, like it also came with a lot of guilt and shame and like, oh my god, I don't think I can tell anyone kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it tends to latch to things where you wouldn't talk about in public or you wouldn't talk about openly. Hence why it latches to taboo type themes and like incest and things like that, and POCD and any sexual theme. It's because, you wouldn't even just mention that, right? So
Yeah,
OCD knows that, but it goes after it. But I just want to go away from that and talk about how else the guilt made me feel.
yeah,
And a real point I want to cover on this video, because I'm sure people watching can relate to this exact thing, where nothing else matters, where you feel like, what's the point to everything? Now, let me give an example. So let's say I was going for real event false memory OCD, and I was convinced this thing happened in the past. Whether it is real, whether it was false, didn't matter. OCD was convinced it happened, right? And I was feeling really guilty over it. And I'd wake up, and if someone gave me £1 million, it would be like, what's the point? Don't matter.
Yeah.
This thing happened. I'm going to live with chronic guilt forever. I don't deserve any good. I don't deserve any luck. I deserve to be punished forever, never let off the hook, blah, 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 right? And that, and that is so demotivating. That is so soul destroying because you could try and achieve anything. Let's say you're trying to build a business, for example. Let's say you're trying to, with education, you're trying to get a qualification, right? And any effort you're putting in, it's like, what's the point? You know, why would you even do that? Because this
Yeah.
thing happened 10 years. Why would you even put in any effort now? Because even when you reach that goal, you're not going to enjoy it. And that is how it can feel, right? With the real event force memory, I spent years like that. Hence why I gave up college qualification, right? Halfway through, because it felt like even if I put in the hard work and achieve it, I wouldn't enjoy it anyway because of this thing in the past.
Yeah.
And I lived years like that.
No, I think it's this complete you completely dissolve everything else in face of
Yeah,
like guilt and shame and regret. And I think
yeah,
what's also important to discuss over here is is the perspective on guilt itself, right? And that goes for, by the way, like any form of um our perspective on any kind of negative emotion. I just did a video on the channel called like pushing through discomfort, right? And this is what I talked about in that. And that concept applies to guilt as well, where you're seeing the presence of guilt, shame, or regret as this like absolute obliterating threat to your sense of peace and happiness, which is like, I think, like the complete opposite of what it is. Because um like guilt and regret can be, I mean, inherently those aren't bad things, because those are like the brain's indicator of implementing change and making change in life and learning and growing and having that kind of like wisdom in life, right? So inherently feeling like bad about something you've done in the past, having regrets in the past, is not a bad thing. What you, again, it's the perspective of guilt itself and regret itself. If you think that, oh, this one thing is going to completely make me unhappy, is where the irrational, exaggerated like part is coming in, and the catastrophic, destructive thinking is coming in. And because you literally sit down to have a conversation with each and every single human being, I don't think there's any human being who doesn't have like a big regret in their life, or
of course.
they feel guilty for it, because everyone has a um. Have you seen Inside Out, the animated film?
No.
Okay, so well, if people who've seen it, there are core memories, right, that are formed that become kind of like your bedrock of memories where you draw so many lessons from, and they become like important parts of you. So it's kind of like that, right? It's a core memory that gets formed that you,
Yeah.
in some ways, like that becomes your springboard from where you know start making changes in your life and you become a different person. And now obviously having a more accepting view of myself, if I were to, again, if you gave me a red button to push that could erase all my mistakes, I genuinely would not do that, because it would erase all like this wisdom and brain.
Yes.
Not saying I'm like super intelligent, but like maybe I am, but like all this stuff that I have, that'll also, a lot of it might go, and I don't want
Yeah.
that. I want to keep that.
Exactly that. And there's a key point that you say there, that the aim isn't to eliminate any regret, right? Because healthy guilt is good. Healthy guilt is
Yeah.
designed to make you not perform badly again, right? So you can healthily regret an act. So let's say you made a mistake. Let's say you did a bad investment. You did something, you lost your job, whatever, right? So you can say, look, I didn't like that. The consequences were dire because of that, right? But chronic guilt serves no purpose there, because if you're constantly dwelling on it, replaying it over and over again, you're just going to get caught in that cortisol soup, as Rob says, that black soup where you just can't get out of, right? A healthy regret, you can say, okay, that wasn't good. What did I do wrong? How can I make sure I don't do that again? What lessons can I learn from that? Right. And that's the difference. I talk about it a lot in coaching calls and videos where people will come to me and say, well, no, this thing happened in the past. That means I'm doomed forever. And I go, hang on a minute. This thing happened. Let's say it happened. Right? Worst case scenario, this thing happened. Right? The only thing keeping you stuck now isn't the thing happening. It's how you're viewing that. Right? You can't change that thing. However basic that sounds, it's the truth. You can't change this thing. Right?
Yeah.
The only thing you can change is how you're looking at it, how you're viewing it, how you perceive it. Okay, and that is so game changing that because until I started applying that advice, I was trying to change the past in my mind. So I was trying to work it out. I was trying to find the answer with the rumination and the analysing. But I thought, you know what? It obviously wasn't that simple. I didn't just go like that and it stopped. But I thought, all right, let's not try not to engage with that. Let's look at my beliefs. Okay, the beliefs is where I'm going wrong, not the event.
Yeah. And I think that another like important perspective to look at over here is also like people who go to jail for whatever kind of crime they commit, small or big, right? They in there they are still given proper food, they're given shelter, they're given life structure, they are given I mean their religious like spaces in there as well, like they have like churches or whatever inside a prison too for you to attend. They have group therapy sessions, they have counseling sessions, they give you meds, they give you like a bathroom, they basically give you essentially what every human being kind of like uh, basically requires, right? And why, even if it's a life sentence, right? They still do that. Otherwise, people would say, "Oh, this person is in jail forever. What's the point in like giving them anything because they're in here forever?" But the reason that they're given like some of your basics in life is exactly because what matters is whether they stay in jail forever or whether they get out at some point is the internal change they make in themselves. That's why they're given that kind of like whatever support or whatever normal life aspects. That's why they're given that, right? Because the internal change is what matters, and that's what like the hope is as well. That at least staying in here, with your basic necessities, can make this person reflect on themselves and their actions, and maybe walk away, um, with that like internal change, right? Otherwise, people would
Exactly.
what they would do would they would just like throw someone in prison and just leave them in a corner, and maybe from the roof, an opening in the roof, they would just throw like two apples or two sandwiches to them and a water bottle. That's all, just to keep them alive, and just a little pothole in the corner of the room where they can go relieve themselves. But that's all.
Yeah, exactly. And with the chronic guilt, behavior is less likely to change, right? Because let's be right.
Yes.
With chronic guilt, you're not going to be thinking straight, are you? You're going to be constantly beating yourself over the head because of this one act you've done, or this many acts that you've done, right? And calling yourself an evil, horrendous person. And then you're going to start thinking that you're forever going to be an evil, horrendous person that can never do any good, right? So you can
Yeah.
strongly condemn an act. So I tell a lot of people, you can condemn an act, you can strongly disagree and say, yes, that's a very bad act. However, if you're labeling the human as totally condemnable, totally bad, totally evil, then you're just writing them off. Okay, a human can change. Yes, they might never change, right? They might choose not to change, right? But a human can change. Okay, so given them that opportunity, yes, seeing that bad as act, education as well, saying yes, look, the consequence of that act was very, very bad, and how do we make him not do that again? By just labeling him as a scumbag monster, that ain't going to do anything because it's going to make him feel even worse, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
So
And
healthy, yeah,
yeah, and also
right,
like I think anyone watching this and they feel like they want to change themselves as a person for what they may or may not have done, like one of the biggest ways you can start changing yourself as a person is also by accepting it that you have flaws, right? Because like just a tiny example from again my just early like teenage journey a little bit is just when I was ending my A levels, right? I I think that's a turning point for a lot of people when they're like, oh, everyone is going their own way to college and uni and whatnot. So like, you kind of start evaluating life a little bit and your friendships and whatnot. And I think that was a very important time in my life because up till that point, I had been a bit of a people pleaser, and because of that, there was a lot of like chasing validation kind of thing that was happening as well. And because of that, I also did not want to acknowledge any flaws I might have had. It would, if somebody pointed out like something, bad about me, I would take it very personally, and I would feel there would be a lump in my throat, and I would feel like, oh my God, like I have something that someone can criticize. Why is it there? And I think at that point was the first step, literally was me accepting that I have flaws. If I did not accept it, because if I did not accept it, I would still be in a chase to run away, get rid. But when you kind of like sit with that in the same room, you that's when you are able to actually see what it is, and then take the practical steps in your life to start changing that. And that's where some of the biggest changes in me as a person started to happen, where I was like, I don't want to run away from my flaws anymore. I want my flaws to stare at me in the face, so that I can start to learn to see how I can change from this. So, like you said, Sam, like you can't make if you're just stuck in trying to escape and be like, no, this is not me, this is not me, this is not me, this is not me. It can from a tiny thing to a big thing. You cannot make change unless you accept that you're a flawed person from to start with.
Yeah, and just to quote, not to quote, but just to talk about mine and Nick's favorite book, Ray Dalio Principles. He talked a lot about mistakes and weaknesses, and exactly what you're saying with flaws and things that you're not good at, so weaknesses. And I actually see them as good things, right? Yes, they're frustrating, and yes, they can cost you. Like, let's say you're not very good at something, and then you lost money over it or whatever. But actually seeing what you're not good at, seeing the mistakes as a good thing, and how you can change, right? So the lessons that you can learn from that, because people so often shy away from mistakes. They
Yeah.
try and hide it under the carpet. They try and go on pretend they're good at everything, which is impossible, right? You're human. You're not perfect, are you? So you might be good at one thing and bad at something else. Yes, you can work to be better, but let's be right, you're not going to promote out the natural talent to get better at it, or to exceed at it at a high level. But seeing something you can and can't do, and looking at ways to overcoming that, ways around it, maybe getting advice from other people, that is so important. Rather than seeing mistakes and weaknesses as this terrible, awful thing, seeing it as okay, a lesson to overcome, and that's a huge change in mindset right there.
Right, exactly. Because I mean, also, who wants to be perfect? That's annoying. Like,
But that,
yeah, I mean,
I agree.
anyone who is just like a perfect person who like has not made any mistakes, it's just like, no, like that's such an off vibe. I wouldn't want to be even in a relationship with that person. I would want to be
Exactly.
with someone who has flaws, which
I
is realistically
think
everyone.
And the thing with that, although mistakes aren't nice, right? Although messing up isn't great at the time, but I find learning from the mistake, and then let's say you can see progress, you can see results. That is so rewarding, right? That is so like, oh yes, that's worth it. That
Yeah.
mistake was, look how the satisfaction that gives me from not doing that again, or I can see that I've got better at that. And
Yeah.
that is why mistakes are so crucial. And this is why, the upward progress that we do, same as the recovery journey, right? When you have setbacks, when you have triggers, okay, all that is okay. What am I scared of? How can I overcome that? That's all it is.
Also, I mean, if you really think about it, perfection can also only exist if I mean, well, first of all, there's obviously not no perfection, but if perfection were to exist, it would only come as a result of making mistakes in the first place. Because
Exactly.
nothing can be perfected unless you haven't messed up
And,
in it.
and also, who defines what perfect is, right? The same with good and bad acts, because someone over there could say that act is good, yet let's say someone a completely different part of the world could say that act is bad, right? So straight
Yeah.
away, two different beliefs. Yes, there's laws and rules in place for obvious reasons and for good reasons as well, of course. But just because someone labels something as good doesn't make you a good person, because someone could say it's bad. Does that make you a bad person? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, exactly. I was also talking about this on the webinar last night as well, in terms of like, deservingness and things like that, right? Because let's say deservingness and fairness was an actual measure, but then there are 8 billion people in the world. Whose measure of deservingness and fairness do we follow then? Like, it would be like utter chaos if we try to implement everybody's deservingness and fairness all at the same time.
Okay,
Obviously, from your framework, it seems like the absolute truth. Go ahead.
who would even decide that? What you deserve and what you don't? Some superhuman level? Like who would decide that?
I mean, think about it. Like, deservingness and fairness basically came out of human beings trying to assign some kind of measure and proportion to things that happen in the world. Because that's the only way human beings can make sense of things that happen. So it gives human beings a sense of, again, control or certainty, or like a sense that they can predict things, and be some like assign some kind of like balance in the world. But we all know that like really latching on to that idea of deservingness and fairness is
Yeah.
where a lot of anxiety and resentment is like stems from actually.
Yeah, and if you're watching this video and you're struggling with that, then the myth of self-esteem, the book on the reading list, breaks that down really, really well, especially chapter 4. But read the whole book,
Yeah.
with the deserving concept, the value of a human, the good and bad people, how that can't be defined. So yeah, if you're not quite understanding what me and Momin mean, give that book a read. That'd be very helpful for you.
Yeah. Sam, I think I would want to keep this like short and sweet as well. I don't we don't have to make it like an hour long
Yeah.
thing.
But
Um,
can I just
yeah.
touch on the point whilst we're
Yeah, yeah,
here?
go ahead. That's what I was going
Cool.
to say. But if you have something else, do add.
Yeah, so with guilt, right, a good way of viewing it is, well, and also with unconditional acceptance. So if you're struggling to apply unconditional self acceptance, right, try applying unconditional other acceptance. Okay, so look at someone that you don't agree with, maybe political beliefs, religious beliefs, something they've done. Maybe they're in jail, right? Look at that, and try applying compassion to that person. Try and understand, or try and see life through their lens. Try and see their perspective. Okay, see why, although disagreeing and condemning an act or condemning their belief, see why they might think that, right? And that, once you can start applying that to other people, then that opens the door to applying that to yourself,
Yeah.
because you could say, okay, I accept that person for doing such a thing. Why wouldn't I better accept myself if I did something that I regret, or mistake that I made, right? So start applying it to others and then apply it to yourself and then go from there.
Yeah, and I like again self-acceptance and other acceptance kind of bleed into each other. They do inform each other. Like sometimes the way to self-acceptance can, like a starting point can be to look at other people, but
I,
also
I find that
like
I
vice
find that
versa. Yeah,
personally, I find that easier to apply it to someone else, and then what
same.
am I saying to everyone? People, everyone's different, of course, but I find it easier to see something I strongly disagree with, apply unconditional love acceptance to them, and then start turning it to yourself. And that
Yeah.
that was okay. I was seeing myself in different perspectives as then.
Same. I think it was easier for me to do that as well. I think first I was like, okay, if I'm attaching really high standards to myself, let me try to put like, see like the other perspective first, and then maybe I can extend that to myself. So I've definitely found that way more helpful, and like doable for myself. But obviously we have people come in who find accepting themselves easier and accepting
Of
other
course,
people really hard.
yeah, of course. Everyone's different, aren't they? But yeah, I think this video has provided a lot of quite important advice as well.
We're
Um,
amazing. I mean, let's just say that we're amazing. We're great.
but so many people are stuck with guilt, right? So just watching this video, it's not like to blow our own trumpet at all, but a
Yeah,
lot of information's been how to overcome it, how to view it differently. Changing our relationship with guilt is a big one,
yeah,
and seeing the human is separate from the act. That is so important when it comes to chronic guilt.
yeah, absolutely. No, and I mean, at the very least, you're walking away with maybe just food for thought, even if you think whatever
Yeah,
we're saying is just complete crap. But at least it's food for thought. It's a starting point.
yeah,
Right,
cool. Nice
right.
speaking to you, mum.
Yeah, nice speaking to you too. Always a pleasure. And maybe after the holiday season, we can do more of this.
Brilliant. Yeah, speak again.
All right. Bye, Sam.
Bye.